Greetings and welcome to the Elephant TV. My name is Joe Kubuthi. Today I'll be speaking to Abdullahi Boru. Boru is a senior analyst focusing on the Horn, and just recently a curator focusing on issues around the people, the region, the economies, the culture of Northern Kenya. Karibu Boru to the Elephant TV.
Asante, Joe.
Asante. Boru, just to start this conversation, Northern Kenya has been a ghost territory, and if you read political theory and political scientists, territories are very part of statecraft. But if you look at the territory that we call Northern Kenya, previous Northern Frontier District, for the first 60 years, actually not for the first 60 years of the idea of Kenya, which was then under the British, it was a buffer zone. And then come post-independence Kenya, and for the next 60 years, it was still a buffer zone, but also other facets. The space where the media say just banditry, nomads, pastoralists, people who are just moving around, can't be civilized. That kind of narrative has been set around that space. But three things happened, say, the last 15 years. The first thing, which I think is very instrumental, is the Katiba 2010, the Constitution of Kenya 2010, and a kind of new social contract was crafted for what we're calling Project Kenya. And we'll have chapter 1 on with the people. We have chapter 6 on leadership and integrity. We have chapter 4 for the Bill of Rights, and which touches on everybody. Importantly, around that also chapter, we have chapter 11, which is on devolution. So resources and power is decentralized to the counties, but importantly also parts of Northern Kenya. And then secondly, we have Vision 2030, which was part of that whole arrangement in Kibaki's regime. And a significant pull of Vision 2030 to pull Kenya into a middle-income country by 2030. A lot of the huge mega projects that were envisioned within that policy document are and will be situated in Northern Kenya, i.e. Lapset, the wind farms, solar
cities,
precisely resort cities in Isiolo, the international airport in Isiolo, which has been done. The Lamu port, which will connect to South Sudan. Precisely. So a lot of the projects, the big infrastructure projects, Maendeleo, is going to be focused in Northern Kenya. And we have seen, the Lamu port, which was opened last year by President Uhuru Kenyatta. We have seen many roads being built to Lokichogio, Moyale, Garissa, etc. in the last couple of years, particularly the second and last term of Uhuru Kenyatta. But then thirdly, also in 2012, 2013, there was a sessional paper that was passed around the ASAL regions, particularly in Northern Kenya, saying that how then do you now bring these spaces into the fold of the Kenyan economy? And so within the logic of territories being marginalized, and the last 15 years, you have all this focus on Northern Kenya. Someone who has born in Northern Kenya, studied Northern Kenya, curated content on Northern Kenya. What I think the first question is that what does this mean first for Northern Kenya? But then two, what does this mean for Project Kenya, and specifically for elections 2022 and beyond?
Thank you so much, Joe. I think the way you laid it out, provides the nuances, the canvas on which most of the way Kenya reflects about itself, but also the way it reflects other Kenyans, right? So I think, if the original scene was, the Kaburus, because they are not pastoralists, they were largely farmers, looking at these people and then automatically othering them because of the climatic conditions within which they live. They are not in the highlands, they are not farmers, they are pastoralists, they don't stay in one place, they have to go and look for their pasture. So if that was the original sin, then, the 2010 Katiba was meant in many ways to cure that sin, right? To say, look, that was a mistake. even if it wasn't said out very loud.
Right.
So it was a way of saying, look, you are not contingent citizens where terms and conditions apply, but you are also part. That is number one when it comes to the Katiba. Vision 2030 was another element where, you know, the people in this region are predominantly pastoralists, where their lives and livelihoods revolves around pastoralists. It's not just for food, but it's also a way of expression. It's a culture. If a child is born, you slaughter, you know, a goat or a cow. Somebody is married, you know, you use, you know, cows. Somebody is dead, you're buried, you know, a bull is slaughtered. So all the ceremonies revolve around cows. So Vision 2030 essentially was meant to say to these guys, maybe we underestimated, despite empirical evidences out there that pastoralism is not compatible with modernity, depending on what modernity and civilization means. So Vision 2030 is saying, hey, look, we are doing this. Now we are coming to you after decades of ignoring you. I'll get back to what that means for the rest of Kenya. And then the sessional paper on ASAL was essentially another admission, albeit not said very clearly, that sessional paper number 10 of 1965, sorry, was with its trickle down, a function of zeitgeist at that time, where build certain areas and then it will come. You know, the trickle down from there will go on, you know, without accounting for culture, without accounting for leakages. So in very broad ways, that is how it solved some of those problems. What does it mean for Kenya then? You know, this project that we all call it Kenya, we wear bracelets, we carry Kenyan flag, you know, the expressions are in various ways. So what this does is, for the period where some of these three major, there are others that are under discussions, it meant that Kenya, that part, the northern part of Kenya, was practically an outpost. During Imperial Kenya and the Brits was just, you know, was kept there. During post-colonial administration, it was kept there. So ideally, these people and the region was seen as a problem to be solved. They are not part of Kenya, right? And so in that regard, for Kenya to be fully Kenya and democratic, and for us to say that we are living the words of the Katiba, where people are at the center of it, and to say that, you know, in our national anthem, sote tukae na amani na undugu, then this has to happen. At least to me, as somebody from Northern Kenya who genuinely believes in Project Kenya with all its problems, this again is such a fundamental exercise, but it takes more than just these documents to change. And that brings me to the question, you know, the foremost poet in Kenya asked, Kenya twaendapi, you know, as part of the bigger project, Kenya twaendapi. So I think that is how I see this laid out in terms of, you know, where Kenya goes as a project, despite, you know, it being declared dead, you know, a few, I mean, maybe almost like decades ago by one of the Kenya's foremost historian, Professor
God. So then what does it mean for, I mean, again, just to the conversation around territories, negotiating territories, because on one hand, you had a territory that was, you rightly said, was an outpost and then was peripheral. And what does it mean when now this territory is now being aggressively included within the political economy of Kenya? What does that look like? And specifically to really bring the conversation closer home, what does that look like in an election season like this, when in the last 10 years, for instance, the president has traveled to Northern Kenya more than any other president combined, showing interest. There have been military barracks that have been set up. If you're looking at the kind of politics that is emerging, particularly around the economy. For instance, the UDA and the flagship of the Deputy President, William, we're talking about bottom up. Are there any correlation between the emergence of Northern Kenya and how politics is being shaped within Kenya's public sphere today?
I think you are onto something there, in the sense that, when you talk of bottom up, just pick any figures. The Bureau of Statistics generate probably some of the most accurate figures in the region. These counties, the counties in the north, which again, speaking about territory, constitutes, if you combine with southern parts of Kenya, particularly the pastoral regions, constitute 80% of Kenya's landmass.
Precisely.
Right? Where the largest source of protein for most Kenyans come from this region. And so you're looking at people, if you're considering lifting people up, you're talking about Juakali sector. This is the real Juakali, where people have to travel distances with their livestock in search for water and pasture. And your question wouldn't have come at a better time than now. We're heading into an election. We have 3 failed, and potentially this one is the 3rd one, failing rainy seasons. And there's no one group that is as affected by the rain. Northern Kenya is largely governed by the rain. So if at that time, this is the time when, you want to realize, the Kenyan oneness beyond, policy papers, as significant as they are. I don't want to downplay any part of it, particularly devolution. The people who are willing to lay their, any claim to being Kenyans is, via devolution, where now these counties they've started receiving a fair share of, the country's resource, and that is making other people uncomfortable, and, all manner of diversions have become, something that people latch onto. For the president and even the UDA candidate, moving to these regions, speaking to them and saying, hey, look, livestock production, much as we do not want to admit, it contributes significant to the GDP than many other sectors that tends to get preferential policy treatment, right? Talk about tourism. The pastoral communities are, they're part of the big 6. You cannot talk about pastoralism if you do, about tourism, short of, the sand and the ocean along the, the southern part of the country, along the Kenyan coast. Most of the game parks and national reserves are in pastoral areas. And most of them, mind you, were hived off from pastoral regions, grazing areas, for them to be what they are, that they are national parks. And now increasingly, what passes for, community conservancies. So as we move into this election, this will be the 3rd elections under 2010 Katiba that many people in the North consider, the passage of new Katiba as their independence, political and economical speaking. So this is one more steps in consolidation of that. To your final point about the votes, this region might not be vote rich like many other counties.
Right.
But what it has is, for you to be able to, let's say, control the parliament, they are probably the biggest bloc. The pastoralist community is the largest single bloc in parliament. They are the largest single bloc when it comes to even the counties and the governors. So it's just a question of realizing that suddenly what you considered as not very useful, peripheral, is now very important to the economy, because you need all these large-scale infrastructure projects to be able to relieve the pressure in the other parts of the country. You cannot build, all right? You cannot build these ports, not just because of geography, but also because of space. You cannot build some of those large-scale infrastructure power projects, not because of anything else, because of land. And that then becomes, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, then land, again, going back to your question of territoriality, becomes such an important aspect of these discussions.
Yeah, thanks for that. Tied to even the conversation around territory, again, with this idea of state building is a question of identity, which, and you've just created, a lot of stuff around Northern Kenya. Juxtapose that to Southern Kenya, we have there's a lot of difference ethnically, difference in terms of religion, difference in terms of language, different terms of food, economic activities. So even as we have infused, the state has brought in this huge territory aggressively, with instruments of the state, with big infrastructure projects. But then now the next question to me, even now moving forward, even as we are, and particularly these elections, in a sense, we're beginning to see shifting fault lines away from the usual ethnic conglomerations to other particular issues emerging, other markers of political organizing. As you rightly said, we are seeing the ASAL communities with pastoralists. But then I think Northern Kenya introduces a new dialectic into that model, because it brings religion as a significant pull, because a significant part of Northern Kenya are Islam, right? Economic activities. Southern Kenya, by and large, farmers. We're bringing the pastoralists, again, which is economic activities, and then also it being a corridor to the larger part of the Horn of Africa, Somalia, Ethiopia, South Sudan. In terms of now negotiating identities and really fixed towards the idea of Project Kenya, how do you think this is going to play out now? And how do you think that will influence Kenya's politics now, but also moving forward?
Thank you. That is such an important question, Joe. Because one of my general observation about the other part of Kenya, it's again these blinkers that for lack of better words, that prevents people from imagining something that isn't like them. Identities that are not, you cannot box them in one, right? Be it farmers, we all have multiple identities, and I have to be very careful, because the North also has got tremendous fault line and identities, but then there are others that they share. So I think for Kenya then, which, in Moi's estimation was an island of peace, which was very, self-serving in many ways, not to be bothered by what is going on around. Now Kenya, with the opening up of this region, a region that, straddles between the southern part of Kenya with all its identity questions around land, agriculture, and faith, to now what is more different milieu that is largely rainbow, right? Rainbow in the sense that faith, if you look on the Somali side, predominantly Muslim. If you look on the Ethiopian side, you have to come face to face with multiple identities, not just Islam, but
Orthodox
one of the most, exactly, one of the most diverse old religious orders of Christianity, Orthodox, otherwise. So I think it is, if tapped into, if harnessed in very, strategic ways, then you are suddenly opening up these other part. Just to give an example, when DRC, joined Jumuiya, it was very much welcome, right, from Indian Ocean to the Atlantic. But here you have another one, from, Indian Ocean to the Red Sea. If you add Ethiopia, 110 million, with all the challenges that Ethiopia is facing right now, and you're looking suddenly, not just, on the continent, but you could easily go to the other side. You have your Yemen, Saudi Arabia, and the rest. And that brings with it the possibilities that we could not, fathom few years ago. And so I think it is an opportunity, and with it also tremendous amount of challenges that, if Kenya, being confident, the foundations are there. Vision 2030 is remarkable. You've done well with all its problems. You have the Katiba and all these. If you look, just a simple example, during Hajj, or, during the holy months of Ramadan, this part of the world that potentially joining Ethiopia and the rest opens up, No, you're looking at, a livestock trade that is that can completely be opened up and changes the fortune of this region, while also in the process changing the fortune of Kenya. Then we start thinking about, a Kenya that is very multicolored, multi-ethnic, multi-identity. That, to me, I think you have that as a salad bowl, rather than just having, one meal. And that really is what this country and the Katiba aspires to, although sometimes we fall short of it, and which is sometimes understandable.
So thanks for that, Boru. I mean, just to move us forward. So even as we talk about the idea of territory and identity, I think what comes to mind within this very, very complex but also very exciting space for imagination is we recently we're just concluding, curating quite diverse content around Northern Kenya, from economic activities, culture, politics, negotiating democracy, etc. But one question, at least for me, comes to mind is that then what should be the terms of engagement moving forward? And this I say now, factoring in, I think it was your routine say that now, how do we create agency for everybody? Because this creates a new kind of, as you said, milieu or dispensation. But then how do we then craft the terms of debate, terms of conversation, or the terms of engagement, such that it's not a zero-sum game. It's not now Southern Kenya colonizing Northern Kenya, right? It's not Southern Kenya colonizing, and it's not Northern Kenya resisting, I don't know, infiltration, but resisting Southerners going into North to invest in land, businesses. The Kenyan entrepreneurial spirit now moving that side. What should be the terms of the conversation, and how do we frame those terms in a way that it becomes beneficial for this thing called Kenya?
Thank you, Joe. I think if you sum it up, Kenya is in a midlife crisis, just ahead of midlife crisis, where and nothing signifies that than these elections, right? Where a great deal of
it's about nothing. It's about
exactly
nothing.
A great deal of ideas of what elections should be have been put aside, and you see people brittle when they are being told, no, we are not going in this direction, we are going in this direction, because we've been acculturized for the last 20, 30 years to think that this is what the terms around elections should be. And when you hit a midlife crisis, you hit a pause button and figure out what to do next, right? And the good thing is we have the tools, we have the framework. Two things probably needs to happen. One is a generational shift. There are people of certain generations that if you tell them, both in the South and in the North, that we have one united future, they cannot understand it, because the gaps between these two is so significant. And everybody, particularly for people in the North, people of not my dad, but people before my dad, theirs was like, look, this country has provided us with a space, put your head down and start working. Just stop complaining, take everything on a chin and move on. People like my dad's generation then, they had a chance. They worked with GOK, they got, you have kakiosk hapa, and you're able to do watoto wako utawapeleka shule and all manner of that. But then there is a generation that is mine and the people behind me. They're like, no, I am unapologetically Kenyan, and I am going to ask for what is owed to me unapologetically. Right? And that is what this is the magic about this Katiba, in the sense that it is there for everyone, with all its gaps, with all problems with its implementation. It's a fairly unique document that, for a lot of people, much as most Kenyans are proud about this Katiba, I don't think I think very few people have come to terms to how radical a document it is. Very few people have sat down and realized that this thing has completely changed our terms of conversation. It has completely shifted the social contract that we need to have with each other, with the state and state agencies and the region. So I think the best place to start is the Katiba. Two things are critical. Two things. Number one is for the people in the South, whenever they engage, and this is where devolution becomes such an important point, is you've got to engage with the North now from the point of equity. And if you read through the Katiba, the question around equity is just very much alive, right? It is just like a very important part if we are to maintain this project called Kenya. Even if it has multiple organ failures, it can still be helped and be able to get going. The second one, for the people in the Northern Kenya, particularly its leadership, is a question of accountability. You cannot, reduce this into, marginalization Olympic. You don't have a copyright to being marginalized.
Right.
All right. So the thing is, when money comes from the exchequer, it is not your money. It's not that you have to make up for all the time that was lost. So therefore, you start using it anyway, which way. The money has to be accounted for because you owe it to the people that have elected you, particularly the county leadership, and for you to start realizing that you don't have to come to Nairobi for medical care. That medical care money has been sent to you, be able to create facilities there. Therefore, people can have their time. But I think if those two issues are dealt with, with a fair degree of respect and responsibility,
right,
you're beginning to see that, this relationship is mutually beneficial to both sides. And then maybe within this journey, we don't have to speak about this side of the country and this side of the country. We speak as a country. Kenya prides itself, for instance, is, a leader in clean energy. That clean energy is the wind farm in Turkana.
Right.
All right. So for us, the rest of Kenya, really, I genuinely think that if we do it well, it is in the benefits of all. You cannot just be building military barracks and, look at the place as largely as a security problem that needs to be solved. It is an opportunity too that you need to capture, but opportunity ni kama msumeno. It cuts both ways. The North has to create the opportunity and the South as well. And that, I think, will make us live by the ideals of the Katiba,
right,
and the ideals of our national anthem.
Finally, Boru. After one, I think I have to quote you, a grueling year of, curating and just trying to bring in voices to start the conversation around Northern Kenya. What do you see as the space for non-state actors, in particular civic society, the fourth estate, traditional civil society, private sector, not just leaving out government, because you would answer for the government. What do you see as this place, and to give, in concluding, practical policy recommendations for non-state actors engaging in issues around Northern Kenya, and what are the gaps that you've seen in the last 1 year about how people can engage effectively towards lifting the lives, and also just building a robust ecosystem of political, social, and economic life for Northern Kenya?
Thank you, Joe. I think it's something that dominates my thinking a lot of the time. What needs to be done in very practical way. I think there is a need for, serious spaces. I'm very glad that, the Elephant has provided this in the way that, we've been able to tackle some of these issues that we are discussing, really through the lens of, local experts, local intellectuals, local, people on the front lines of these issues, climate change, and many other stuff. What needs to happen now is, at the very minimum, these debates we've set the terms for these debates without exaggerating, right? We've said, you cannot discuss Northern Kenya without the perspectives of Northern Kenya being at the table. That now we've created that space. The next step is now taking these discussions. For instance, even if it's just the livestock production and value chain addition as it goes along, and be able to do it as it needs to be done. That is the economy part, right? You cannot talk about, the economy of Northern Kenya without thinking about, somebody who's buying a chunga ng'ombe, somebody who has got 100 cows. Right. This part of the Kenya could be considered poor. Like one cow, just the minimum is 100,000. But if you meet somebody and buy on 100 cows, you tell him you are poor, but somebody who has got 3 or 5 acres of land elsewhere is regarded as rich. So that discussion has been, that is the direction that it needs to go. The second one now is the politics, and this again is both ways. But for the people in the northern part of the Kenya, and that is they lead political leaders, non-state actors, media, and people who are cultural entrepreneurs, creating a space, think, do, and convene tanks where people can come and have these conversations, just to generate a sense of civic citizenry. It's no longer just trying to say, oh no, you don't have to come and prove that you are Kenyan. The Katiba gives you that. That has been done. We've done our part in that regard in surfacing some of these things. Right. Now it's a question of now taking it to the next level. With media, I think that debate has already gone. Like if you go to these regions where each county at least has got 2 or 3 radio stations, they really do not care what the mainstream media does. The debates of what they do, what is more important is where is a water point? People are dying of hunger. What can we do? That the horse has left. And I think we can have meta discussions of how it's framed, but they are framing it themselves and they are going on with their lives.
Precisely. So that means, what I'm hearing you saying is that a lot has moved from, a lot of the political questions have been answered by people from Northern Kenya, but also even from platforms like what you've done with the elephant, answering these big meta questions. But the gap is really about institutional building, within building institutions for, by, of people from Northern Kenya. So how would that look like, Boru, in concluding this conversation?
That would look like now people from Northern Kenya doing it themselves. You cannot blame, oh no, we are marginalized. That is done. You cannot say people do not understand. People understand you now. But then once you've claimed that, it's akin to getting an independence, right? You cannot continue going back to London and say, oh no, seen a password of getting into this machine. You've been given everything now. The ball is in your court. Do it, deliver it, and show people. And that's why I say service delivery and civic citizenship will be very important for the survival of many of the political elite in Northern Kenya. You can no longer blame Nairobi now. Should that money from the to the counties be increased? For sure, we can have that debate. But I will ask you, like any other person, what have you done with what was given to you? Not as a charity, but as what you deserve. What have you done with it? So show course why more needs to be done and should be done. Then that was why accountability, service delivery, civic citizenship, engagement with the local elite, and the local elite having their own spaces. Like for instance, having a center that most of that does serious policy work, not for Nairobi, but for the people in those areas.
Thank you so much, Boru, for this conversation. Thank you for your time here at the Elephant. Asante sana.
No, thank you.